Hello everyone and welcome back to day 19 of our F-125 Hotlap and Setup series. Yesterday we returned to the US Grand Prix at the Circuit of the Americas. And after doing all of the Hotlap practice for this video, it's got to be one of the toughest circuits on the entire game to try and get an entire lap hooked up. This place, there's 10 lefts and 10 right-hand corners around this circuit, but a lot of them are very, very kind of high-speed, high-commitment. You get one opportunity to turn in. Quite a few of the corners as well are slightly off-camber, and it's all about just trying to get the traction off of the turns as well. Of course, if you're new to this series and don't know what this is about, we basically go through every track inside F-125. I provide you guys with a race-ready setup inside the game. We then also talk through kind of where your braking references should be if you're trying to learn no line, your gearing, everything like that. And then last but not least, I leave you with a hot lap. Of course, as always, timestamps will be linked down below. If you do find these videos useful, please do make sure you drop us a like, get yourself subscribed to the channel. We're trying to hit 15k subs here at the moment as well. But yeah, without further ado then, let's head first of all onto our track guide. Well, making our way then through the final corner here at the Circuit of the Americas. Third gear on the exit, try to get on that throttle as early as you can and open up the DRS. Get the car pretty much fully over the white line as you make your way up the hill in towards turn 1. You want to try and make sure the outside wheel is over the other side of that curbing, and you're going to be looking just after the 100-meter board, about just before the black box in towards turn 1, about 15 meters out from the pit lane entry line. Leave the car in 7th gear as you make your way up the hill. Try to get it rotated off of the curb ever so slightly, and then you want to go for a really late apex through turn 1. Attack the curb nice and tidy. 2nd gear, I like to short shift up the 3rd on the exit just before you go over the bump. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of wheel spin as you make your way down the hill. Turn 2, not really much of a corner in a Formula 1 car. Get the car nicely over the inside curb. You're going to be all the way up in 6th, maybe even 7th gear in qualifying trim. Completely flat through the first part. Completely flat through the second part. Try to attack the curbs through the third part, again completely flat. In race trim you want to probably blend off the throttle and downshift here. In qualifying trim I just like to downshift still at high revs. And then through this next part you want to be looking for that switch between the red and the green AstroTurf at the edge of the circuit there. I like to bring the car down 1 extra gear, just blend off the throttle slightly, and then try to keep the car over on the left-hand side as we make our way up through the next corner. These 2 corners are the absolute worst on this circuit. 4th gear through the first one, attack the curbing, and then through the second part, try and get full throttle as early as you can. Be careful not to run wide though, otherwise you will invalidate the lap time. It's also very, very sensitive there, so you can't even risk running the wheels on the white line on the outside there. Down the hill, brake about 90 meters out, ready for this hairpin. Again, you want to be trying to go for a late apex. 2nd gear through the entry, get on the throttle nice and early, and then short shift up into 3rd on the exit. Again, using all of the curbing available to you on the outside, and now we cycle our way up the back straight. Keep the car over on the right hand side. You can use this red paint there as well, just to try and give yourself the shortest run, and then down in towards this final sector of the lap. You actually want to brake really, really early here, pretty much at that AWS sign on the outside, maybe even slightly before. Bring the car all the way down from 8th gear into 2nd. This curb you can really attack on the inside. Try and get the car nicely over the orange curbing there. 2nd gear on the exit, up to 3rd there, up into 4th gear, and then through this next kind of there's no real braking reference here. It's a really, really odd one to try and get the car slowed down for. If I just show you guys again, you see you kind of bring the car over from the other side of the circuit, and then it is very much just kind of a short stab on the brake, and then try to get the car rolled in through the apex there. Very, very careful on the throttle on the exit, just as you go through kind of the dip. That's when you can get on the full throttle, and then using the curbing on the inside there as your reference marker. From 4th down to 2nd, again, get on the throttle nice and early, short shift to 3rd, and then bring the car back over to the left-hand side as well. This final sector, completely flat out in qualifying trim, but in race trim, you've got to be so careful, especially as the tyres go off, that you just need to make sure you're blending the throttle ever so slightly. Cover the brake pedal as well, just to try and make sure you keep some stability in the car. 6th gear then in towards this final couple of corners. Use the black box on the outside as your reference point. Tip the car in. Again, qualifying trim basically flat out in 6th. In race trim, you want to downshift to 5th gear. Get the car nicely wedged over this curbing, ready for the final corner of the lap. Again, braking at the black box on the outside, or you can use the pit lane line. 3rd gear on entry, get on that throttle nice and tidy once more, and that is going to be a lap of the Circuit of the Americas. Like I said, the corner out of the S is easily the worst one here, but so many corners are really, really high stakes. The penultimate corner as well can really catch you out if you don't get the line nailed. I spent far longer than I'd like to admit. I think this is honestly the longest it's taken me to get a lap that I was fairly happy with inside this game. And even then, if you get to the hot lap, you'll notice there are still a couple of mistakes. I could definitely set a 132 round here, but trying to get it all hooked up is no easy feat. Let's head back to the garage though, and I'll talk you guys through the setup. Well, here we are then back in pit lane. As you can see, we're about 2 seconds away from some of your top esports times, but this circuit is a really, really brutal one-stop. So yeah, we've had to optimize it quite a lot to save the tyres as you get into a race stint there. In terms of wing angles, 45-40, actually very high wing angle around this circuit. Unless you're going up against the AI, I would say if you're running in career mode, bring this down to about 32-36. The AI just OP down the straights here. They're also OP at the exit sector 1 as well, so it's really, really important that you've got a little bit more rotation than them, but also not so much straight line speed that they're going to absolutely just waltz away from you in a straight line. 80-30 for the diff. Again, there's a lot of really tricky traction zones where you're just trying to get the power down as early as possible, so you want that diff to be a little bit more unlocked than normal that we see in this game. On throttle, off throttle, fairly standard setting. It's just through kind of those S's at the end of the lap where you've got to be a little bit careful. Suspension geometry, pretty much the baseline that I run inside this game. It seems to work pretty much everywhere. Again, if you just want like a time trial setup, run these all on complete minimum. You'll find a little bit more speed. Suspension setting 37.3. Again, that's fairly standard inside this game. 8.15 in terms of the anti-roll bars. You can afford to run that front anti-roll bar a little bit firmer. You can run it at like 10 or 11 if you're feeling a bit brave, but 8 just works for me inside this game. 24.51 on the ride height. It just allows you to attack those curbs as well. Again, that final corner of the S's can be brutal for kind of unsettling the car. And also the penultimate corner, where it's quite off camber. You want to try and get the car nicely over the inside curbing. 55-98 for your brake pressure and bias around here. Again, I like to run a slightly more front bias around this circuit just because a lot of the big braking zones are in dead straight lines. So it's important you get the weight over the front of the car as best as possible. And then last but not least, 28.4 front PSI, 22 rear PSI. If you're still struggling with the rears, I would up the rear PSI to about 23. But of course, then you are going to be compromising yourself a little bit of speed as well. And especially through the traction zones, that is going to be very, very difficult. This circuit is all about compromise, to be completely honest with you guys, inside F125. It's brutal. Honestly, I don't really like it. I don't think they've done a very good job with COTA in the last couple of games, especially with how much this circuit has suddenly become about tyre saving. It used to actually be one of the best circuits on the games for not having to look after the tyres too much, but nowadays, yeah, it's pretty terrible. Hopefully this setup helps you out though. If it does, please do make sure you drop a like, get yourself subscribed, and we'll be back tomorrow ready in Mexico City, another track I'm not particularly keen on.